everybody. You have reached Brian and Diane for another episode of Biters. And this is your very discombobulated 40-something who has got her zombie shuffle on this week.
And as always, your zombified 30-something, Brian.
So how's it going, man?
It's going. Finally got an episode where I wasn't checking my phone.
Right?
I was very happy with this. It made me smile. It made me think about what was coming up next. It made me try to anticipate what was going to happen. I was calling the shots as the episode was playing on, and I hadn't done that since Proper.
And you got a hold of me and let me know to keep...
Get your notebook
Get my
handy.
notebook out. That's right.
You bet. So I was very happy with this episode.
So how did you rate it?
I rated it as... I have a little bit lower expectations, so my grading system is a little bit looser for this. So in this episode, I rated it 4 deflating life rafts out of 5.
So we're really, really close. I rated it 4 kidney shots out of 5. And I know that Thomas O'Mara left some feedback about rating on our Facebook page, so we'll get to that at the end of the broadcast. So do you want to talk about numbers from last week, or do you want to talk about the title of this episode?
Are you recording on an airplane tarmac right now?
So seriously, there is an airplane flying so low over my house, everybody gets to hear it.
I think you just hit the satellite dish.
It's actually Flight 462. It's going to crash in my paddock.
Jeez. All right, go ahead.
So do you want to do title, or do you want to get the numbers from last week?
Let's get the number junk out of the way and get to business.
So last week was, no, it wasn't Monster. There's something else about Monster. Last week was Ouroboros, and It was 4.73 million on the same day. I did not pull DVR numbers. So, definitely kind of on the lower end of season 1 of Prime. So it's still kind of struggling to find its footing.
Yeah, you can look at it that way, or you could look at it as it is still a success,
right?
Because I don't think we can make that comparison of saying, well, they need to have 15 million viewers to be successful, because it's not proper, and that's something we can't compare it. The Walking Dead can't be the benchmark for success, because that was just an absolute home run into the atmosphere. So really, to compare it would be, like you just said, looking back in time at where The Walking Dead was at this same run. And it's a little lower, but it was still right there. But also, it's a summer series.
Right.
And summer series, I'm sure 5 million in the summer series is actually pretty good.
That completely makes sense. And I'm definitely not comparing it to where Walking Dead is now. I'm comparing it to where Walking Dead Prime was in season 1.
Sure.
So, we're seeing similar numbers, but not quite as good. It'll be interesting to talk a little more about numbers. You and I talked about it before we signed on today, and I think there's some interesting stuff going on there, and we'll talk a little more. So this episode was called Blood in the Streets. What did you think that meant?
I think, it's just kind of an old-fashioned way of saying, when you're pissed off at somebody or you're going to do something about it, like, yeah, well, there will be blood in the streets.
Oh, I totally missed that.
Yeah, I think this was a straight callback to this is the first time they're getting their hands dirty. This is the first time they have had a true guns in their faces. I know the original guy in the parking garage of the hospital or whatever.
Right, the soldier, right?
Yeah, when What's-Her-Face got shot. But this was the first time it came to their doorstep. People either chickened out or jumped overboard, so this is where there was going to be blood in the streets. Someone was going to get hurt, die, something was going to happen, and everybody done got their ass beat.
So, of course, I missed that, which is a great interp of the title, and I dug a little deeper and tried to come up with some stuff, so I may be stretching here, but listen to what I came up with. So first, I think it is a direct reference to Nick wearing his blood suit in the streets. And I think it gives a really good visual image of him walking along that street and really looking hard at that walker who gave him a pass as thinking he was another walker. Thinking might be a strong word, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then I think it's a more subtle reference too, because we find out that Strand did not have to be in LA, that he returned to LA while it was falling apart. So he's kind of returning to a situation where there is blood in the streets, which is
yeah, that's true.
Which is also kind of full circle for him because we met him as Hurricane Katrina was going down.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then I thought they should have called this episode Ouroboros, you know?
Yeah. No, that Blood in the Streets, it's cool. It's a nice title. And I think it's one of the few episodes that they didn't actually say the title of the episode in the show.
Right. I think so too. I don't remember hearing it. So if anybody out there remembers hearing it, let me know. Let us know. Let's see. So our author was Kate Erickson. She has actually written one other episode of Fear. She wrote Monster, which that was the premiere of this season, right?
No.
Oh, that was
it was the premiere, because it was the whole, if you want to be the monster or if you want to kill the monster, you got to be the monster and whatever. Madison, I hate you.
And so she's got a couple of other series that she's written for. She wrote an episode for Mr. Robot, which I've heard is phenomenal. I just haven't watched it yet. She's worked on Copper, which I've never heard of. And she worked as an editor on the series about the Borgias.
No idea. Cheap labor.
And then director was Michael Uppendahl, and he has worked on Mad Men and American Horror Story, so he's certainly got some good credentials.
An AMC helper?
Yes. And he worked on an episode called Quad that I've never heard of.
So let me ask you this question. If the numbers are lower than anticipated, if you were AMC, would you bring in some of your seasoned vets who have been on TV series before to kind of play your hand, so to speak?
Absolutely. And if I were an official at AMC, I'd also be bringing in some of the writers and some of the directors from Walking Dead Prime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just saying, no, this is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, we always know it's going to be a killer episode when Greg Nicotero directs on the Prime season, or the Prime good Lord, the Prime series.
Well, yeah, I'm so to that, obviously his team is doing this one, but at some point in time, are they happy with the 5 million mark, or are they unhappy with the 5 million mark? Because if you're happy with the 5 million, keep as going. But if you want those episodes, when is Greg Nicotero coming in?
Yeah.
I know there's a different showrunner, but
when is Scott coming in as a writer?
Yeah. And it's Gail Ann Hurd's. She is the executive producer of all this stuff. When is she going to say, all right, it's time to get my hands dirty.
Absolutely.
We're going to put some work down into this. And we might see that in season 3, because they already ordered season 3. So that's all in planning stages. So we might see that. We might actually see that kind of emphasis being put into it.
Well, and I will say that I think the zombies we saw during this episode were much more consistent with the zombies that we're used to.
Yes.
And maybe that is a sign that Greg is grabbing the helm a little harder.
Yeah, I think there was a time reference, and they said it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks now.
Okay.
Since the fall. So 2 weeks in the warm California sun, yeah, you'd have some decay.
And it's hard for me. I was looking at this and I was thinking, okay, we're already through a significant stretch of season 2 of this series, and we're still at the very beginning. Probably Rick hasn't even woken up of the Prime series. So
yep, I completely agree.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting mental stretch for me to think about where this group is at as compared to where our primary group was at.
I agree.
Okay, so cast member of the week. I am going to totally geek out on you.
Oh boy.
So I'm
just going to look out the window for a minute.
Okay, hang in there, man. Find a good bird to focus on, okay? So I was watching the credits well before we started seeing any of the new characters on this season, or on this episode, and I saw Duke Ray Scott in the credits, and I was so excited. Do you know who he is?
Like Beverly Hillbillies or something?
No. Good try. So he's the guy that played Thomas Abigail, and he actually was in a huge movie with Drew Barrymore many years ago called Ever After. Do you remember that movie?
Is that where the person has a concussion?
No, that was 50 First Dates.
Oh, okay.
My husband loves Drew Barrymore. No, it was a retelling of the Cinderella story.
Oh, okay.
And
no idea.
It was really good. I mean, we were big fans, and we've watched it several times. So as soon as I saw his name, I was like, yes! And it looks like he's got a recurring role, at least for a little bit. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I definitely think that character is going to be around at least through the rest of the season.
Yeah. So Dougray Scott, in my world, his big thing was Ever After, and I had kind of said to my husband pretty recently, man, it's a bummer. I wonder where this guy's disappeared to. And when I looked on his IMDb...
He's in Mexico.
Right. When I looked on his IMDb page, he actually has tons of credits as an actor. He has remained very active, forgive the word. I just kind of lost track of him because I haven't really watched anything that he's been consistently in since Ever After, but he worked on Hemlock Grove. He had a brief stint in Doctor Who. He's been on Desperate Housewives. He was in Mission Impossible 3 or 2, excuse me. So I mean, he's got tons and tons of credits. I just lost track of him, so I was kind of thrilled about that. And he is Scottish. He was born in November of 1965. Which certainly makes him the older man in the relationship with Victor Strand. Anyway, I was tickled to see him. I think he'll be an interesting addition.
Well, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Nerd.
I am a total nerd. You knew that already. All right. Tell me, what you got for your epic?
So my epic, which was the real draw into this, was Nick's mission. Like, I loved Nick's mission. So when it first started out, you're seeing him like all naked in the water. I'm like, what is going on? You see the helicopter and the Coast Guard and stuff. I'm like, oh, this must be like it's either a way flash back. I was thinking like he was kind of flashing back to being strung out of his mind and waking up naked in the ocean. But then I realized, oh, he has all of his clothes in a bag that he was using as a life vest,
right,
to help get him to shore. That's interesting. And then I'm like, well, is this a real flash forward? Because we never got to see what put him here. Mm-hmm. So this must be like a way flash forward. Like now I'm thinking like, oh boy, here we go. This isn't going to help you out. And then you start to notice that it's like, oh no, he's using the blood trick, but he's still gagging at it. So I'm like, oh, well, it's not too new then. So, okay, this is current. And then as it's going on, I'm like, awesome, man. Like, he's doing this for his kicks and his thrills. And he's just sneaking away at night, just going to kill and walk amongst him. Is this his new addiction? You know, if he can't get drugs, is this his new adrenaline high?
I like that.
That he's kind of walking through them all. So I'm like playing out this whole storyline in my head, which going back is I was looking forward. I was already hooked onto what's going on. Mm-hmm. You know, so I was loving it. And just the whole, which we'll talk about later, going to the house and the note and just everything. It was just like, yes, I totally dig this. Like, I love that component of this episode.
I have to say, I was really taken by this episode as well. So I think we were both on the same page about this. We've been pretty much on the same page about Fear. Mm-hmm. They've kind of pulled us along with very similar opinions. But yeah, that was cool. And I thought it was interesting that Nick figured out the blood suit so early on. But then again, I looked back at the other series and I thought, you know, actually our guys figured it out pretty quickly too. It was like
they just forgot about it for 5 seasons.
Right.
Yeah, it was like episode 4 or 5 in proper where they did that.
I think it was 4 because I said 3 or 4 in my notes, so we'll meet in the middle.
Sure.
So my epic is actually multi-part. First, I was really excited that this was the first episode of this series to hold my attention for a long time. I mean, I think the other one that really held my attention and was kind of scary and gripping was the one where we really started to see the rioting when the rioters and the zombies were looking into the shop that the Salazars owned.
Yep.
And I haven't been very hooked on this series since that one. So I was glad to have that experience with this series again, finally. The other thing is I really like that they gave us Strand's backstory, and I think we'll get a little more into that. The other thing that really struck me is that our survivors and the bad guys that we saw in this episode are already so much more vicious than our survivors in the primary series, and they're all so much more vicious than our bad guys were so early on in the primary series.
Yeah, they've really kind of just leapt forward with that.
Yeah.
But look at where everyone's from. Hey, our proper is from the friendly South, where it's hospitality, and these guys are out in California, where California is not exactly known for its great hospitality to outsiders. So
I'm glad that you said that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I was going to ask you, do you think it's because of the environment that they're in as compared to the environment that our primary series is set in?
Yeah, 100%. If you're looking at crime and if you're taking the real consideration of where things are in the Los Angeles, where they're at, clearly there's more crime in Los Angeles than there is in these small towns of Georgia.
Right.
So those are things to consider with how people progress and do that. And, the people in Georgia were very religious in the show in the early beginnings.
Right.
Not so much in this one.
Yeah.
It's really just the one Salazar girl.
And we have not seen, now that you bring that up, very much religious symbolism in this series, whereas I feel like throughout the original series, there has been a lot of religious symbolism.
Yeah, there's just the one now where Nick found that rosary for, what's her name? God, why can't I remember her name?
Ophelia. I think of Hamlet.
I paid my wife to take that class for me in college. That's a true story, by the way. I paid my wife to take Shakespeare for me.
Okay, y'all know. Now you've found Eikenberry's weakness. You can exploit it.
I pay people to do the stuff I don't want to
do. Let's see. So what else? Yeah, I also kind of, the element of the bad guys, I felt like they skipped the governor and went straight to Negan and the Saviors.
Yeah, I don't quite think we're there at Negan yet, but I was reading some stuff, and it was like what Fear the Walking Dead needs to do to save itself. And, I'm thinking in my head, it's like, they're not dead. And for a reference, people always say, oh, Apple's dead. The iWatch was a total flop. Actually, the iWatch by Apple standards was not a home run, but it wasn't a flop because the iWatch controls like 70% of the wearables market share.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, it's huge. They control a ton of the market share in the wearables. So it's like, it's not really a flop.
It just isn't the first couple of iPhones.
Yeah, they're just not touting it, So it's the same way, is that they're not addressing the concerns because 5 million viewers for a summer show is still pretty good.
And when you think about it, 5 million for other series still that are big hits on other stations.
Yeah, I'm sure CSI is at about less than 5 million. Right. There's 50 million of those.
5 million is pretty damn good.
I agree.
I think, the other thing is just the introduction of new characters. I thought that they were really interesting and they definitely complicated the series more. So we have Jack, we have Connor, we have Luis and his mother, and we have Thomas Abigail. And basically each one of those people represents more responsibility, more complication. So I think that's going to make the series more interesting too.
Yeah, it's definitely going to get wild once they cross into Mexico.
Yeah.
So what's your fail?
My fail is that I have to admit about the first 10 to 15 minutes, I was like, what? What am I missing? I'm so confused because I didn't really get how we got to that place with Nick. And there were a couple of times that I looked at him and I was like, is that Nick or is that Chris? I think it's Nick. But, I was really confused and I was embarrassed I'm embarrassed to admit I was so confused, but I was like, what? What is going on? And then we saw that zombie in the kind of camp out area that Nick walked through that had the bite on the back of its leg. And at first I thought that was Nick. So I waited for him throughout this episode to turn.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah, and I was like, I obviously need to be paying better attention. And then the other thing is that I thought some of the dialogue was hard to hear. I had to really crank it on my TV, which I don't usually have to do. I'm not so old that I'm going deaf.
Yep, I agree. I had the same problem.
So I just kind of felt like some of it was probably me not being as attentive as I could have been in the first few minutes. Some of it was some fail on the part of the way the episode was put together.
I think it was meant to be like that because of how everything tied in at the end when he knocks on the door of that address.
And they did a beautiful job bringing it back together.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said earlier about, we have that full circle with Strand. Mm-hmm. We also have that full circle with Nick.
You bet.
So that was really cool. So what was your fail?
Alicia.
Yeah.
I hate her.
Do you hate her more than you hate Madison?
No, it's a tie. It's a tie. It was just one of those things where I yelled about it when she was on that radio, and I'm like, this is going to come to bite him in the butt.
Yep, totally.
And then they hid from the boat in that cove, and I'm like, the boat's got to come back at some point. And then I completely forgot about it. And then once they got out and I seen that girl was pregnant, I'm like, oh, that's Jack.
Oh, you're good, because I got sucked in by that.
No, once I seen that she was pregnant, I'm like, that's Jack.
Ah.
And then when she's like, Jack, and then all hell breaks loose because they realize the gig is up. So that was, it just made me go back to, I was liking her. She was kind of under my radar for my hate. And then this whole thing just reminded me of, I hate you. I hate you. You piss me off now. And you're right in the same boat as your mom is now, kid.
Well, and one of the things that I really didn't like is that she's very manipulative.
Yeah.
I think she's manipulative with both our survivors, who are supposed to be our good guys, and with our bad guys. So I kind of came away from it feeling like I don't trust her. I'm still a little bit stymied by the relationship between Maddie and Salazar, the fact that they've got this kind of trusting allies relationship. So, interestingly enough, about the only person I trust at this point is Strand.
Yes.
Still.
Didn't I say that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Like, look, this guy is actually a good guy.
Yeah.
So one thing, she is a stupid girl. Don't mind, I didn't say that the right way.
She's a stupid person who just happens to have that specific gender.
She is a 17-year-old who was in high school, who just lost her high school boyfriend when all this went on, and she hasn't dealt with her emotions, and she is just a silly, misguided child, and she was making this connection with this guy on the radio, and I legitimately think she fell in love with him over the radio.
Oh my God,
just
it's like the Facebook of the zombie apocalypse, the portable
Didn't I
radio.
Say that? Didn't I say that? It's just
you have.
Now that it's this shortwave radio dating site that they're doing. And I 100% think that's what happened. And when they showed up, she's like, wait, but I love you. So I think she's trying to be manipulative, but at the same time, all she wants is somebody to hug her and, tell her that she loved me and all this crap. So
yeah, and she's not getting that from anybody now.
No, everybody is hard and there's no emotion.
Yes.
I mean, think back to when you were 17 and you were a senior in high school. Were you emotionally capable of dealing with this, and you lose your high school crush and all this is happening and nobody has given you a hug?
Dude, I am 45, soon to be 46. I'm not sure I could deal with it now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you think about the I can't remember the name of the syndrome where they fall in love with your captors.
Oh, Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening here. I think she's eventually going to break them out in the end, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Your
So,
fail.
we talked fails. What about epic fails? You want me to start or you want to start?
Go ahead.
So, I confessed this to you before we started recording. I am going to confess it to the listeners in general. I don't have one. And I think that I don't have an epic fail because we've been waiting so long for an episode that would feel like the series was catching its stride. And I feel like we finally got one.
And not a lot of people were able to see it because of Game of Thrones.
Well, and we talked about that, not just Game of Thrones, but there's also, I just looked at feedback on IMDb about this episode, and there's some pretty negative feedback out there. I mean, people are saying, I don't care about this series, I'm not watching it, blah, 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 blah. So I think, maybe they strung along far enough that they've lost people just because people got bored. Mm-hmm. So between being up against Game of Thrones, which you're absolutely right, that's a huge deal, and then with people just getting tired of waiting for this series to take wing, there are people who did not see this episode.
Yeah, I'm completely on board with that. It's going to be a tough go, but if there was an episode to see for somebody, this would have been that episode.
Absolutely, I agree.
So my epic fail is not showing more of the discussion with Nick and Strand.
Yeah.
I get why they didn't, because it worked out in the end. But I want to see that, because Strand knows that there is a daddy need in Nick's life, in Alicia's life. He knows this because there is no father, and Travis is not that father figure. So Strand is exploiting that. He's not stupid. He is going to do that. And he got Nick to swim in the ocean naked past the Coast Guard through Walker Land to his address, knock on the door, and for that whole thing to play out.
Right.
I want to see that convincing part in there.
Well, and you just brought up something else for me. That's exactly a mirror of Strand and Thomas Abigail.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though Strand's father was physically present in his life, he says, he was just a strip mall preacher in the end. So it sounds like there's not a strong attachment there. And then
his mom walked out on him.
And his mom walked out, and then all of a sudden, Thomas Abigail shows up, fills this void, and says, "Oh, I'm obligating you."
Mm-hmm.
So
yep. And he's broke at the same time.
Right.
He says, I'm bankrupt. I got to start all over again. So all of this stuff happened right at the perfect opportunity.
Yeah. So another full circle, and he sees that perfect opportunity with Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Way cool.
So that's it. There's the epic fail and epic fail.
Right. So now we've got rotting potpourri, or is it squishy seaweed? I kind of feel like we need to make a seaweed reference on this one.
Maybe. Could be, I don't know, rotting cut bait. I don't know.
So
too much thinking.
You made a couple of good predictions. It was Strand's family.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly wasn't his wife and his kid, but it was Strand's family, and the Abigail is named after Thomas Abigail. And God, there was something else that you predicted that I wrote down. I'll have to see if I can find it in my notes, but you got a couple of bold predictions coming true here.
Hey, I'm getting hot, catching fire now. Yeah, it was just neat to see how this kind of played out. I really, really liked how just the whole Strand situation, it's kind of playing out. I did not see it coming until they held hands at Abigail's property.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, cool. Oh, he straight up ninja'd the guy's credit cards.
Right.
I'm like, he's stealing his identity, and he's just a big con man. And we were right, but he's also a good businessman because he's talking about these real estate deals and all this stuff. So he's not all that. He understands. He is a con man, yes, because that's how he built his bankroll to go out and buy all of the real estate.
But that stuff's legit.
Yeah, so he had to do what he had to do to build up his money to then go be a player in the game. ultimately, that's what a lot of people do. You know, you play small poker cash games around to build up your bankroll. Those games aren't completely legal by any means, but you do these other things to get to your big payoff, you know, your big advantage point. So he's just doing what he needed to do, and then it's going on and all this stuff. I really just dug it. Like, I was in his story. I loved it. I really was appreciative of the storytelling that we got back to. That was there.
I agree.
That was the cool part of what was happening, was we got that story, and it wasn't just character development. It was real story.
And it gave me empathy for Strand that I didn't have before. I mean, I liked him. I thought he was interesting, but this actually made me be like, wow, you know, such a tragedy for him to lose everything in Hurricane Katrina. And, you know, he put it back together. That's really cool. And he didn't have to be in LA. So this was kind of this terrible fluke for him, where now he's fighting to get back to the people that he considers to be his family.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually gave me a ton of empathy for Strand that I didn't have previously. Yeah, he's the hero of the series.
No, so let me ask you this question. I'm just going to ask it for conversation purposes. Strand is a con man. He did not tell Abigail that he loved him back. Do you think it's an act?
Well, I'm glad that you're asking that question, because I, at first, when Abigail said, "I'm obligating you," it kind of felt transactional. You know, it felt like basically Strand was forced into the relationship with Abigail because of his crimes. So is it consensual? Not only does Strand feel for Abigail, are his feelings true, but is it even consensual? Is he in this relationship because of the power differential?
Ultimately, I think he's in the relationship because he's in the relationship. But you always have to wonder, because he is a con man, is this real? Because that could have been why his mother walked out and his dad was a strip mall preacher, because he kept telling him this was not the right thing to do. It's not okay to be gay in this family and stuff like that, you know?
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
So that could be why he had all these problems and issues. And he wasn't talking about his bankruptcy. He was just talking about his life situation and what it had really become at the bar.
Okay, I don't want to bring race into this, right? But I'm going to, just because I saw this post that really pissed me off. So somebody on IMDb said, AMC is terrified of strong heterosexual black men. And I'm like, okay, I hear the grief about the primary series about they kill off all the cool black characters. But now we've got to not just bring race into it, but we've got to bring sexuality into it too.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
I don't even think in the original episode or in proper, like it was just inadvertently happened that way.
Right.
I genuinely believe that it just inadvertently happened that way, because
yeah, go ahead.
It's just how the storyline flowed. Yeah. They had to make decisions. Do we keep T-Dog or do we keep Carol?
And of course you're going to keep Carol, even though I love T-Dog.
You know, they know which chunks of population they have to kill off. And I think it is just inadvertent. And then when someone pointed it out, they're like, oh, whoops.
Well, and I watched a little bit of Talking Dead last night, and they were saying that originally they didn't plan that for Strand. They actually kind of had the kid and the wife squirreled away somewhere, and then they were pitching stories in the writer's room, and they were like, hey, this would be a really cool twist. And that's how Thomas Abigail came along.
Totally surprised me. Yeah. 100%. So I'm curious as to how the rest of the group is going to take this news now. So let's kind of... It's tricky to talk about these storylines and these segments of it, but so let's take a break there.
Okay.
Now let's go back to the boat.
Okay, so my question to you is, did you feel some sexual tension between Chris and Ophelia, even though there's kind of a May-December thing going on there?
Yeah, I think he was kind of hinting at like...
I did too.
Hey, babe.
It's a zombie apocalypse, man.
Yeah, we're out at sea, and I'm not doing my sisters, so what are you up to? I think it's kind of this little love triangle that's going to go on and blow up in everybody's face. So check this out. So Nick likes Ophelia.
Chris likes Ophelia.
Chris likes Ophelia, but I think Ophelia likes Nick.
And Chris and Nick also have the rivalry of essentially being brothers.
Right. And Nick is trying to progress that brotherly love.
Right.
He keeps saying, hey, come on, brother. Come on, let's do this together. And he keeps trying to do that outreach stuff with him. But he keeps just like, whatever, you're just a stupid addict to me.
Which this group already has so much tension.
So I think that's going to blow up in their face. Like, Nick is kind of the hero right now. He's doing all these big and brave things that nobody else is doing. And he got Ophelia the crucifix, and he got Ophelia's medicine situated with her father. So he's done all of these things. They're going to be up on the deck one night, and they're going to be kissing, and Chris is going to see it.
Oh.
And it's going to come off the rails, and all hell's going to break loose again.
Well, and since I'm talking about racism and sexual preference and all that kind of stuff, I might as well bring this up. I'll be ageist, too. I think that she's too old for Chris.
Yeah, because he's talking about being a senior in high school, and she's like, yeah, I had a high school crush
Right.
a long time ago.
Right.
So I think she's trying to set that bound. I think she understands what he's trying to do, but she's kind of dropping those kind of references like a long time ago. I think she's kind of
trying to gradually let him down.
Yeah, like
gently.
Something before it's not even over,
Yeah.
Because at some point, someone's going to be the odd man out of a relationship here. And right now, it's looking like it's Daniel and it's Chris.
Yeah. I think so, too.
Yep, that's not going to... So, you got that going on. But the line of the show for me was, they're coming up, and Chris is like, Dad, should I shoot him? And which also, like, no, you're on a boat. You hear a scream.
Right.
Why were there not 10 people rushing out back? Everyone's like leisurely getting up and kind of hee-hawing down the hallway. You guys realize what's happening here. And you're like, oh, he's screaming? What? What's going on? He's like, Dad, should I shoot him? And the line for me was, hey kid, if you're asking the question, somebody should have already been dead.
I wrote that down. I agree. That was a great line. And again, I think it shows how much further the bad guys and the survivors are in this series, just in terms of, kill or be killed.
Yeah, and I think they've learned that lesson now, obviously, with what's happened. The next time, nobody will ask. They will shoot.
Yeah. And that may lead to a horrible mistake.
It sure as crap will lead to a horrible mistake. You betcha. Because there is no perfect balance. That's never the way it's going to be. There's no balance. It is just bad, bad, bad every time.
Yep. So
what else you got from the boat?
I want to know if you think that the pregnant girl is growing a zombie inside of her womb.
I don't think so. I don't think the show's going to go there.
You don't think they're going to jump that shark?
But I've said that about 6 other times and have been completely wrong. I did not think we were going to watch Sam get ripped to shreds. We watched Sam get ripped to shreds.
Oh, and Noah's death. I mean, I knew Noah was going to die, but Noah's death was big.
Yeah, like I didn't think we were going to see kid-on-kid gun violence.
Yeah.
We watched him get shot in the eyeball. Like I didn't think that we were going to see these things. So I wouldn't put that past them. And no, the baby cannot eat her from inside because the baby has no teeth.
There is that. You're right. No real significant fingernails or toenails yet.
Mm-hmm.
And no teeth. But will it become... I mean, and I'm perseverating on this a little bit because I actually think that Madison did a great job psyching this woman out.
Well, she pushed it. She pushed it
hard, and she was very effective.
Yeah, totally got her off her rocker.
Yeah,
totally did what she was supposed to be. So now, but here's the other thing: did I miss what happened to the pregnant girl? I don't know what her name is, but did I miss what happened to her when the 2 people got their heads sniped off?
And then the other guy got kidney stabbed.
Yep, he got impaled on the crowbar. What happened to the pregnant girl?
I didn't retain it, so that certainly leaves the question.
Or did she go back on the boat with everybody?
I think she's alive, and I think they're going to play this, is there a zombie inside of your womb, out. For better or for worse, I think they're going to play it out. Because you don't spend all of that time on an episode psyching somebody out without some kind of gain.
Maybe, maybe not.
That's my bold prediction. Just that we're going to see her back and they're going to play that out for better or for worse. You know, and maybe they'll answer a question for us. Maybe they will prove that stillborn becomes a zombie, or maybe they'll disprove that.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to remember if she went back on the boat or with the other people back to base camp, or if she stuck around.
Okay, so listeners, did she go back to the boat, or did she stick around on the boat with Madison, Travis? No, Travis isn't there, excuse me. With Madison, Daniel, Ophelia. Where is our pregnant woman?
Yeah, dang, I can't remember. There's a lot of discussion to be had at the beginning of this episode. There are some crucial conversations that are going to be happening. One, Daniel, why the hell did you hide the magazine? I could have saved you all. Right. Because I would have killed everybody in that room. And we had to go through all of this. So technically, them being gone, Alicia and Travis being gone, is your fault. Because I could have killed them. Two, Strand, why did you leave? Too bad my boat. You just took the magazine. I bailed on your asses because you bailed on me.
Ah, good thought.
Yeah. What? Why did I jump ship? Because you took the only defense mechanism that I had with where I was, and you took it away from me. So I bailed. You betcha. I hopped in and bailed. Oh, by the way, this is my bodyguard. Right. So while I was going through today expecting that, you know, they're going to beat Strand's ass and all this stuff. He's got a full-on bodyguard who's got some crazy killing skills.
Right.
You know, when he's like, oh, there's people on my boat. And he's like, is that redhead yours? And he goes, no. And all of a sudden, kaboom. I'm just like, this guy just pulled out a sniper and just started, without a thought, without anything, he just starts picking people off the boat. Kaboom, kaboom. I'm just like, whoa, did not see that coming at all.
Man, again, showing that this group early on is way more badass than our first group.
Yeah, I'm very excited to learn more about the crime family of the Abigails.
I do think that's exactly it. I think we're going to see a crime empire. I think we're also going to see potentially some gang activity. I think we're going to see some, and the flotilla that they mention that you have to transit through. Mm-hmm. There's going to be some criminal stuff around that. I think that's going to introduce our group to a bigger criminal world that is still this early on intact.
Yeah, I think so. And I like the line where Daniel said, we don't need Strand anymore. And the guy's like, we don't show up with Strand, you're not going to need anybody. Something to that effect. Like, Strand goes or I kill you all.
Right. Strand didn't need you, but here you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then I did think it was telling that Madison was the one who went out to pick up Strand in the ocean.
So does that suggest that they're going to have a stronger, more trusting relationship moving forward?
I think so, because she has been that, as much as I hate her, she's been that level-headed person in dealing with Strand. Mm-hmm. So she has been that person who says yes or no. Like, we need to trust him, even when her and Travis were arguing. She's like, no, we have to do this. He hasn't lied to us.
But interestingly, that puts her between Salazar and Strand.
You betcha.
So that is some potential significant conflict as well.
So there's a lot of conversations that are going to be had.
Yeah, did I interrupt you? Did you have any more specific conversations?
No, it was just kind of rambling about those things back on the boat. But then we have to go save Alicia and Travis at some point. Which, how in the hell does everybody know where everybody is?
I don't know. And they may not explain it. It may be another one of those things where it's like, wait, how did we get here? Mm-hmm. So I think we need to wrap up with a couple of things. You and I were going to talk about the length of the season. And then the other thing I just wanted to say real quick is that Coleman Domingo, the guy who plays Strand, he was one of the guests on The Talking Dead. He has such tremendous stage presence. He is so interesting and so compelling beyond this series that, I really need to look back at some other stuff that he's done. He's really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like him.
Yeah, I do too. So how freaking long is this season?
All right. So for those of you who are paying attention at the end, when they were showing the preview for next week on Fear the Walking Dead, it said only 3 episodes to go left in the season. And I was like, wait, what?
Right. Me too.
So we've done a little bit of investigative research, and everywhere it says 15 episodes. So we've done...
Even on AMC, because we found that article on AMC that said they placed an order for season 2, 15 episodes.
Right. So if we do 3 more after this, that'll put us after 7 episodes. Because Ouroboros was 3.
Mm-hmm.
We just did 4, Blood in the Streets, and then we have 3 more. So that'll put us at 7. That means we're going to finish up with 8, which means my math is incorrect here, but we'll be fine.
I didn't reason that out very well either. I'm right there with you.
So Preacher is a 10-episode pilot that starts on May 22nd. So May 14th or 15th, will be our mid-series finale. Then Fear the Walking Dead will start back on July 31st and run until September 18th, giving us about 2 or 3 weeks off before The Walking Dead proper starts. So that's what I've been able to mathematically deduce, is that we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back for 8 more episodes on July 31st. So we're going to take 2 months off, basically, June and July, come back July 31, finish up September 18th, and then it'll be one of the first Sundays in October
that we have season 7 of the original series.
Right.
Yeah.
Bold prediction, October 2nd or October 9th.
I just hope it's up and running before Walker Stalker Con Atlanta, because I think that's the one I'm going to try to get to this year. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to say October 2nd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, that would be right before Thanksgiving.
And then we're going to have that big giant gap between the mid-season finale of the original series and the mid-season premiere, because I don't think we're going to have any Walking Dead filling that space, Fear or obviously Prime.
Yeah. Our initial hope was that if they just made it an 8 season, you would put that in the Christmas time slot, because I don't think going up against Game of Thrones is going to work out too well.
Yeah,
for AMC.
You brought that point up when we were talking before we started recording, and I think you're absolutely right. Completely makes sense for them to take it off while Game of Thrones is in its prime season.
Yep, it's going to be bad news, but you know what? That's why we're going to get through this together. But it's turning a corner. So if you know people who have kind of written it off, see if they can go back and watch this episode. I mean, there's lots in it. There's lots to gain from it. I think it's very cool. As always, keep active on the Facebook if you need us to pick you up a little bit. Thomas, as always, gave it 4 out of 5 floating strand popsicles because that hypothermia was setting in. So she got there just in the nick of time. He really liked the episode as well, so that was great. I liked the episode, except I gave it deflating life rafts, not strand popsicles. Richard David Samuel, he says, hey, he loves the podcast. He likes our articulation on the episodes. And we've been pretty spot on, so thanks for that.
Yeah.
Got some other stuff out here somewhere, I think.
Well, you're looking at that. We just want to hear from you guys. What do you want us to do with the off-season time? We did the retrospective of The Walking Dead Season 1. We were kind of talking about maybe doing people's favorite episodes, minus Season 1 and Season 6, because we've already covered those. We're just interested in hearing what you guys are looking for. It sounds like we're probably going to fill the gaps in over the summer, and then we're actually going to take that space between Fear and the original series, which is going to be like 3 or 4 weeks, just to kind of to regroup, give Brian a chance to get Fantasy Football 515. Is that correct?
515 Fantasy Football
there
Podcast.
You go. Up and running. So,
or on 1350 ESPN radio on your AM dial if you're in central Iowa.
There you go. So the break actually in the fall is perfectly timed with the start of the football season for Brian. But we're looking to hear what you guys are looking for in terms of how we fill some of the space. Or are you just sick of us talking at you and you want a break from us too?
Yeah, let us know. Either way, we'll figure something out. And I'm not covering Preacher. I'm not interested in that show. If you are, let us know. Let us know if you're thinking about it or if you want to start a podcast of your own. We can direct you in the right way.
We sure can.
Yeah, if you're curious about it, let us know. Maybe you can change one of our minds to actually watch Preacher.
And Hunters. Has anybody watched Gail Ann Hurd's Hunters? Because Brian and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, I wanted to, but it's not on at a good time for me. And I just got busy, and now I missed one or two. And yeah, that's it.
Well, I think, unless you've got more that you want to nod to from the Facebook page, and I apologize for people that I'm not more prepared, but we should probably close it up.
All right. Have a good day, everybody, and take it
one dead day at a time.
Whoops. I'm sure people are tired of hearing that crap.
Oh,
but hey.
God, that's so funny. All right. Over and out.
Peace.